But 20 years in the Legion will make a boy man. 20 years in the Legion and they will give you land. 20 years in the Legion, you'll always have a home. 20 years in the legions of Rome.
Good evening, Meridiers. Welcome to How Shit Works, the show where we look behind the curtain of how things run in the kingdom of Meridiers. As always, I'm one of your hosts. I'm Ulrich. I am a knight, a pelican, and a royal peer, and I have opinions. And tonight, as always, I'm joined by one half of my tech. Oh, wait, that's not Erik. Who let Thomas in here? Oh, hey, Thomas. Welcome to the show. Thomas doesn't hear me. All right, so that's Thomas Blackmore. He is my tag team partner tonight. Erik is running a baronial meeting, and hopefully soon Thomas will be able to hear me. And that'll be awesome. Until then, I'm just going to wing it. So tonight's show is we'll cover the Chronicler and the Minister of Children offices. Tonight's guests are Maestra Dianora. I'm not even going to try and say her last name. The Honorable Lady Jane Wolfden and Lady Deedre Turner. There they are. Yay. Ladies, if you would take a moment and introduce yourselves and give us a little bit to know about yourselves and say hi to everyone.
You want to go, Jane?
Sure. So I am the Honorable Lady Jane Wolfden, and I was the Kingdom Minister of Children, and now I am the Kingdom Chronicler. I also enjoy games, so I am head of the Gaming Guild, and basically I like to have fun in the SCA.
I'm Dee. I've been in the SCA since, the mountains were little bitty hills. And I just stepped down from the Kingdom Chronicler's job. It was the second time I did it. And I like making lace and costumes and all the ANS things that I'm not really very good at. So, and that's who I am. I'm the ANS regional deputy for Georgia right now.
Awesome. So doing things that are fun, that's the key part to enjoying the SCA. And Jane, I didn't know you were the head of the Gaming Guild.
Yeah, we kind of haven't been able to do too much with the shutdown. So I'm hoping once things get back up and open, we can play some.
Awesome. Hey, Thomas is back. Hi, Thomas. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Thomas. I'm a knight, a pelican, a laurel, and a royal peer, and I am most importantly not Erik, but I am the emergency replacement host tonight, so I'm happy to be here.
Wait, are you now the official emergency replacement, Erik?
Is that a job I can have? Because that sounds awesome.
It does. All right, so welcome to the show, everyone. I'm so glad that you could all join us. Lady Deidre has some technical issues, and she will join us if we can get those worked out. If not, we will do our best to make everyone happy. And the Honorable Lady Jane will wear two hats tonight where she can as the current. So we have that. All right, so tonight's keywords are lace by Dianora, background check by Jane, and handbook by Deidre. For whatever reason we would have keywords, I don't understand. All right, so I know, right quick, I know we normally are a little loose and a little crazy on this show, and we're still going to be loose and crazy, but we're not going to be doing some of the things that we've done in the past. We realize that because we have ministers of children with us, we may have some younger ones watching. We will attempt to curb our language. I will fail at some point, and I apologize ahead of time for that, but I want to get that out there. And always, the other key statement is if we ever announce we're going off script. Tonight, I have limeade in my Please Touch pottery mug. And as always, we'd like to thank Between Two Peers for no apparent reason tonight.
I think I finally understand why I'm replacing Erik tonight.
Oh, yeah, me reading is a horrible thing.
A quick note to our audience. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and Graf and Katerina will collect them. Then we'll try to answer them at the end of the show, as many as we can. Now to the questions that we have prepared. What do your offices do? What are the responsibilities of your office?
Well,
take care of Chronicler first.
I'll take care of Chronicler. The main responsibility, the most important one, and the one that takes up the most time is producing the monthly Kingdom newsletter. And the other things that we do are we keep track of newsletters and chroniclers' activities in other groups, or I mean, in all of the other groups in the Kingdom. And that's pretty much what we do. Is we watch and help other chroniclers. We try to encourage groups to produce newsletters, because that's something that has really fallen by the wayside, and I think it's a shame. I love the newsletters, and hopefully it helps that they've taken down the firewall so people can go in and see them without paying for it or anything like that. But mainly a good part of the job is that monthly newsletter, and getting into all of the things that go into that is just kind of mind-boggling. So
For the Kingdom MOC, the main criteria or part of the job is fostering the medieval education of the youth and encouraging them and helping the youth of the Kingdom find their path in the SCA. And also checking the background checks and making sure everybody that is fostering that encouragement is safe.
That's important. All right. So we know what the responsibilities are now. What are your qualifications? What required qualifications do you have to take the offices and hold the offices? Jane?
Okay, so for MOC, the qualifications, the way it really works is first you email the Kingdom Minister of Children after you've talked to your group and you voice that you're interested in this position and the Seneschal has given the okay. The Kingdom Minister of Children will, be excited for you, but send you a questionnaire kind of asking you questions about why are you interested in this and do you have experience. That really helps us get to know the person and make sure that they're not being pressured into the position. You'd be surprised about a lot of times somebody has felt pressure to become a minister of children because they have kids. So obviously they should, work with the kids. Then we also get a reference letter from somebody saying, that they think they would be great in this position. We check with the Seneschal, and then we do a background check on them after they've passed all that. If they clear the background check, then, they get elevated to that position.
To be Kingdom Chronicler, you really have to be a warm body. So, because we really need more chroniclers. No, you do have to know certain things, but sometimes it feels like that. You don't necessarily have to have put together a newsletter in your own group. You simply need to know how to put together a publication. And we are working right now with Publisher, so you would need to be either familiar with that, or you would need to work with the current chronicler for a little while to learn how to do that so that you're comfortable with it. In the past, different chroniclers have used different programs, so we're trying to make it a one standard program, because we have files full of things that we can't access because they're in the wrong format. You have to, I think that you really have to have a good understanding of how much time the job takes up, because doing that monthly newsletter takes up a lot more time than you think it will, and tracking people down and begging for articles and then getting everything in at the last minute, because you have a very strict deadline to society. And so what happened with me when I took over was I had like an internship. I did 3 newsletters with someone watching over my shoulder, and I did the same thing with Jane. And I hope that's helpful. So at any point she could have said, no, this isn't for me. But I think that's real important to do that little internship bit to make sure that you understand what you're doing.
It's a lot of hurry up and wait involved with it. And then once the wait is over, there's a lot of work all of a sudden.
Yes.
So I think you've touched on these subjects a lot already about the process of becoming the offices, your respective offices. But who has to approve you, and are there any other steps that you haven't touched on already?
The Crown and the Kingdom Seneschal, they have to approve as well.
That's pretty much it. Yes. And you have to fill out a warrant and everything like most offices.
Yep.
So, do either of you have a society counterpart? A society boss?
Not anymore.
Chronicler, yes, there's a society boss. MOC, no, there is no society MOC. The Kingdom Seneschal is your boss.
Oh.
And
Okay.
I wondered about that a lot when and eventually I did find an answer on why there is no society level MOC, and it's because the society is global and you cannot do the same process globally. The way the United States does background checks, you cannot do that, say, in China or in the UK. It doesn't work that way, so the same laws and requirements won't mesh well.
Okay. Makes good sense.
Then we have a society chronicler, and we also have a publications manager that we work with.
What are the differences between the society chronicler and the publication manager?
The society chronicler would be the person who actually mostly interacts with the Kingdom Chroniclers and makes sure that they have the things that they need to put in that are from society level. The publications manager's job is to get the newsletters published. That's her whole job, and because they are still published in a paper copy, and then they have to be put up on the webpage. So that's her focus.
Okay. What kind of deputies do you have, and how do you interact with those deputies?
I had a deputy who was a replacement deputy. In the past, I have also had an editorial deputy who would read over things and make sure, because when you're writing things, a lot of times you get so intense with what you're writing that you don't see the errors, because what's in your head is fantastic. What comes out of your fingers might not be quite as fantastic, but you're still seeing what's in your head. So I had an editorial deputy. I didn't have regional deputies. There really wasn't a need for that. But I did have a deputy who was in charge of seasons.
For the MOC office, the KMOC would have their replacement deputy, and then there could also be our pen feathers for making the children's newsletter. And there's also Page School deputy, who is in charge of the Page School classes, which are the higher level MOC classes. They're not quite adult, but they're going to need a bit more motor dexterity or understanding in them. Not something for the little kids. I like to say that they're for the more serious-minded youth. You know, somebody who's really trying to find their SCA path.
Makes good sense. It's more deputies than I thought. So I know that you both work closely with your local officers, and that You work closely with your local officers, and your deputies report to you. How do you work with your local officers, and how do you report that information up to your kingdom or society bosses, as the case may be, pertinent to the to the offices we're talking about?
Okay, the chronicler's office, the report from the local chroniclers is their newsletter. So when they send in the newsletter, they have made their report. Some wait and send them in all at the end. Some only do it quarterly. Some do it twice a year. Some do it annually. So it just depends on how they do it, how often they are reported. And then we have a couple of different things. We do a report to the kingdom. I'm sorry, we do a report to the society level. That's just a form, and then we also we have to go through all of the newsletters and put in nominations for an award. The it just totally slipped my mind. Oh.
The Black Fox Award.
Black Fox, that's it. I'm so sorry. I'm saying Black Star, but I knew that was not right. Yeah, and so we go through all of the newsletters that have been sent in, and so that's kind of like a report too. That these are the best of what we've received in a whole bunch of different categories, and we won best overall last time, the one that they just did.
That's awesome.
Well, we didn't, but Meridies.
So for the MOC office, we do it quarterly, and the MOCs have a form that they will fill out, and it kind of does a check on how many times that they have worked, done kids activities, maybe what type of kids activities they did, what the age range is in their group, and what was the age range in the kids activities that they were hosting. And they send all of this to the KMOC, and then he or she will compile that into something a little easier to digest and send that up to the to the seneschal. And then they are done. And then we do an end of the year report as well, which is for some reason smaller than the quarterly.
Didn't know I was like that before.
Can answer that question. I can answer that question. Sorry, going off script here for a second. It's because we already have all of your other reports, and we just need a summary.
Well, it's funny that the end of year report is the only one that is mandatory. You have to do that, whereas the quarterly ones, they're not mandatory, except if you're me and you're sending many memes to all the MOCs badgering them. Because we need to be squeaky wheels.
So, along with that theme, other than sending them memes to badger them, how do you interact with assist with your local officers that work under you? How do you work together with the local officers?
Just mainly in putting the information out there that we can make changes for them. But that's one of the things that Jane has actually started a Facebook group for all of the chroniclers to get together and talk to each other and share things, because that helps to keep the interest alive.
I'm big on transparency and communication, and when I became the chronicler, like she said, I immediately made a Facebook group, and I emailed all the people on my list who are chroniclers, inviting them and telling them what it was called so they can find it. When I became Kingdom MOC, I did the exact same thing, because I felt like all the MOCs were very spread out, and they were kind of hidden away in their groups, and you get kind of lonely, and you don't have people who understand your problems and what challenges you were facing. So I made the Facebook group, and that took off. We really, really became a little family in there that was very supportive and very united. Ulrich is aware how united we became.
I am.
And it was really good, because it allowed me, as the Kingdom officer at the time, to hear what problems they were having, because once somebody voiced one problem, everybody would chime in. And sometimes they would solve it themselves with talking about how, oh, I had that problem too, and this is how I solved it, and then it wasn't my monkey anymore, and that was grand. So that my communication style is everybody is in one room and transparency.
It's a good style. I mean, it clearly worked for you over the years. So,
It was fun.
so I've just go ahead.
I just said it was fun.
It was. All right, so we've just heard from Lady Deedre. Her computer has passed on, and it won't be able to make it, so she is not going to be able to be on the show. We will find a way in the future to do a special show to bring her back. She was very much looking forward to being here, and we were very much looking forward to having her. Perhaps a Pin Feathers show or something in the future to bring you guys back around.
Yes, because we're doing Pin Feathers in a different style now, so that would be good.
And we're going to touch on that a little bit later, but yes, we may do a whole show on it, or a short show or something. We'll figure something out. But that brings us to an issue. So when we do our show, we plan out how long the answers are going to take based on how many guests we have. So we're running ahead of schedule because we have 2 people answering questions instead of 3. So we really need the questions from our live feed from you, our audience. So please post your questions in the comments, and we'll get to them at the end of the show. All right. For the MOC, is there a fund for paying for materials for children's activities? Can people donate to it? And a controversial point, I want to ask how much, but how often do you go out of pocket to pay for materials? Because I know you do.
Yeah, so that there is a fund that started with her SCA name is escaping me, Christine. She was the exchequer at the time before Katya took over, and I can't remember who did it. I know Pixie started it because Pixie always starts it. She posted about funds. She did some kind of post about funds, and that snowballed into us discovering that when we went to Gulf Wars, we could register ourselves as the donation going to the KMOC office. So once we discovered that, we all did it. We went to Gulf Wars, we worked, and then we got the money, and that opened up funds for us. You can donate to it. You just need to tell the Kingdom Exchequer where the money's going. It's not a lot, especially without Gulf Wars, because that's really how we flushed it. The last time it was nice and good, I got all the MOC's banners to be able to hang up so that people could find where they were teaching classes. How often we dip into our own funds? Granted, events, they do set aside money for the MOC, but it's usually only 20. Baronials usually do a little bit more. Kingdom level events usually do more. But I would say 90% of my supplies I had to buy on my own. And the reason for that is because when you are doing events, some groups do more events than others, and that MOC is working way more than another MOC might need to. And like, I'll just use South Downs as an example because they do a lot of events, and that MOC is always working. And you can repeat classes, but if you are doing classes to the same group of kids every time, or the same surrounding area every time, you're not going to want to keep repeating the same classes over and over. Also, events have different themes, so you're going to need to fit the theme. So you're going to be buying more stuff, doing different styles of classes. You might find out, oh, this group of people are coming, they have a lot of teenagers, maybe I can get the teens. So again, that's more stuff you're trying to buy to make everybody happy and make everything interesting. So by the end of it, you're spending a good, like a teacher in a classroom, you're spending a good part of your paycheck going into this.
And both of you know a bit about being teachers and dipping in because of that.
Yes.
So I know about funding. My point is, let's help them out. Groups, members. You know, it's one of the things that we don't support well enough. If we want the youth of the SCA to stay in the SCA, we need to support their activities. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. We do it out of love. We absolutely do. And we don't complain about, the funds and putting our money into it. We would not do it if we didn't want to. And the groups do try to help.
The Kingdom MOC at the time was Mistress Karaschina.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the Kingdom Exchequer?
Yeah, Exchequer. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm gonna have some lime juice.
Facebook ruined me. I knew her real name. I couldn't remember her SCA name.
We haven't said lace or handbook or anything like that enough tonight. So
I have said background check many times.
So for the chronicler, so I guess Dee can answer this while Jane changes her hat. But the Pop Shiv space and funding used to be a big thing before the newsletters went digital. How has that change impacted your office?
Well, since the first time I was chronicler, it's been digital. And so I still have boxes of file folders that I need to get to Jane. And but it's been that way since I've done it. Like as I mentioned at the beginning, the biggest issue I think that we have is with getting the chronicler's office the software that will allow us to be consistent as it switches from person to person, because so that we can stay with a certain program and use that to do the office. That was one of the biggest problems I had when I took over first time, was that all of the paperwork, all the forms, all the old newsletters were all in this format from a program that was a professional program, and there was no way I could afford it, and I had no clue what to do with it or how it worked. So everything kind of had to be started over from scratch. And when I took over this time, everything had been turned into a different kind of program. So I was having to, change it, switch it up again. So I think that's what going digital has kind of done, has put that kind of as a roadblock, because I've been doing this since the time when you would take a piece of white paper and you would cut things out and glue them onto the white paper and and fold it and print it off on a Xerox machine. So this is a lot easier, but that is a big stumbling block for us.
Getting the software was the hardest part for me. It wasn't that I couldn't use the software and didn't understand it. It was just saving up and getting the paycheck to go buy the software for it.
Wait, you had to buy your own software to do your job?
I hate to break it to you, Erik. That's not just limited to these two offices.
Yeah. This is not new in most offices.
Yeah, I'd almost consider that an expense for the job. That's me personally. I'm not I'm not on the financial committee anymore, but if I were you, I'd be sending in a
Voucher.
A voucher saying, "Hey, this stuff ain't cheap." Okay, so we covered a bit more about how much of your personal funds go into doing your job for the SCA. It really is. I mean, and I get it. It really is a labor of love, and you do it because out of love for the kids and love for society. I understand, but we should be able to afford to make sure you have the tools to do your jobs. All right. But this is the same thing I say about teachers all the time. Having worked 11 years in education, I get it. So, how much of your personal time do you spend on the office, and what takes up the largest percentage of your time?
Well, the monthly newsletter, and it can take up, oh gosh, right around that time between the 1st and the 10th, because everything is supposed to be due to us on the 1st. Everything usually gets to us by the 10th, and it's due on the 10th to the kingdom. I'm sorry, I keep saying that. It's due on the 10th to society. So on the 10th, it can take you all day. It just depends on what you're still waiting for. Ahead of that, it's tracking people down to remind them that they need to put their information in the newsletter. Like, and this will happen again when the events come back. When we haven't gotten an event, haven't gotten an event ad, then it's all incorrect. When we do get it and have to send it back, and so right in that time period, there's a lot. Through the rest of the month, it's not as much.
It's that hurry up and wait. You're waiting and you're waiting, and then all of a sudden, poof, lots of work. And the last one, when I rickrolled the kingdom, I spent days working on that one. But that was fun.
Yeah. I just want to take a quick second to thank anyone who's ever been chronicler while I was crown or kingdom seneschal for holding the newsletter until the literal very last moment so that I can get a letter into them, because I did it way more often than I ever should have. And I'm very, very thankful for all of you who have ever done that job.
Bad or no biscuit.
I've thought about changing the date when I contact some of the crowns, and I would say, oh no, really, it is due today, not tomorrow, so that I could get in time.
Everything's due on the 8th. You were nicer than me. For the MOC office, a lot more research goes into it than I think people realize, because you research like hours and hours on Pinterest looking at kids' classes. And how can I make this cheaper? And what supplies would I need? And how can I do this craft in the middle of the woods? Things like that. And then
Your own dime.
And then all the prepping for the kids' classes. Because all the cutting and the gluing or the sewing and getting things ready. So there's a lot of time that people don't realize that MOC will be doing as well for that.
And I think I've seen a lot of the work that goes on behind the scenes for the MOC office, and it is a lot of work, a lot of work, and people don't realize it. And the same with the chroniclers. Just your two offices are some of the hardest, I think, with just volume of work that you have to get through. What changes have you had to make, or have you made to your offices during these lean times of shutdown and the pandemic? Jane, why don't you start us off?
Okay, with MOC, in the brief time I was KMOC during the shutdown, trying to do kids' classes online, that was a challenge, because kids are already, they were going through that shift in school where they were in Zoom classes all day long. And then here I'm asking them to be in Zoom classes on the weekends. So that was a little tricky. Also making sure, do we record because they're kids? What are the laws based around that? And since we don't record because they're kids, okay, we want to get two MOCs in that Zoom to make sure everything is safe. And that way, because it's not just one person, making sure everything is safe, but you need a second person for accountability. So if anybody says anything, it's like, no, I was there to witness. This is what happened. It's to protect the kids and the MOCs. That's the hard part that a lot of people don't understand, where I was coming from when I was mandating that, when I was putting my foot down on that one. And I think that was more the educator in me coming out. Then So we would have that problem. We haven't been doing a whole lot of online classes with the kids lately. And I think that's because we really feel that the kids are kind of zoomed out at this point. You know, they spend, like I said, all day at school online. And here we are trying to make them do that. So we've been trying to up other aspects of it, like pin feathers and things that they can do at home with their parents.
One of the things about the newsletter is that because in electronic format, we are very restricted as far as how many pages we can have. So we can have 16 pages for the formal newsletter. Then that includes a back cover, a front cover, inside front cover that's a calendar, inside back cover that is usually part of the regnum. There may be a couple of mandatory pages for the regnum, and then we have optional things that we can put in. During a normal year, when it's not a pandemic, with all of the event ads that we have to put in, and announcements from the SBA and job announcements and law changes and all of those sorts of things, we are usually fighting to get everything in. So, you know, I've learned how to do, if you do it in Arial, and you can do it in 9-point, or you can do it in 10-point, but make it narrow, and you can scooch the margin up a little and the margin out a little and take care of the spacing, and you can get more stuff in. And so, but then comes the pandemic, and there are no events, and there are no event ads, and there is really nothing coming in. And we still have to find 16 pages of copy to put out. And so, so one of the things that I did was I started looking around at some of the ANS things to see if we could incorporate some kind of promotion of ANS things that had been going on that might keep people interested. Like at one point we went in and we printed some of the songs that people have written up for bardic competitions. We put out copies of scrolls that had been done for a competition. We've started, I don't know if you're still doing it, but we were showcasing the Crown's letter with an illumination that someone had done. We did an article. In other words, we're reaching out to people for big articles that they don't usually get to put in because there's no space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what we've been doing, and hopefully that'll continue once we start filling back up again, because if people are interested in looking at that now, we will just shift that over to seasons, and we will still be able to get that interest with people putting in the things that they have written or made or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we had the great Meridian Bake Along. Mm-hmm. We had an article on that in there, and we also did the effigy. The
effigy project was a good one, yeah.
Those are both good. So, coming out of shutdown, how do you plan to adjust things to open up under the new restrictions? Because, you know, their new restrictions are pretty strict, but they have to be right now. So,
well, Jane actually has the office, so all I can do is say what I would do. But I think that one of the things that we're going to have to make clear is on the event ads as they start coming out, we need to have a consensus about what needs to be in them and what sort of information we want to make sure that we always tell people about the event that's coming up, what they can do, what they can't do. And that might mean that we have to take other things away, or take graphics away, or make the ads bigger, or do something. But I think that the difficult thing is going to be making sure that the information gets out to everybody as far as what is allowable.
Yeah, that's something that Kingdom Seneschal and we've been discussing, is what information, you know, do we need to start adding? Is this virtual? Is this live? Are there going to, if there is a max on attendance, you know, what information do we need to start putting in there? All of that's still in the talks, but it is something that we're all very aware of that is going to be a forefronter for us soon. For MOC, I know at one point early on in the pandemic, the Crown was asking me for suggestions on how to do kids' activities during a pandemic. And we talked about putting, if we're going to do a craft, putting everything in like little baggies, and each kid gets their own individual baggie so that they're the only ones touching the things. We talked about making it a requirement for the autocrat to make sure that the MOC tent had Lysol wipes and things like that to be able to clean up the stations. If there's a limit to how many kids we can have, making sure all parents are aware of that. Again, we still don't know what the limitations are going to be for MOC at this time.
What do you see moving forward here? What do you see as our biggest challenge for it?
For the MOC office, I would say that one of the biggest challenges is you can tell kids 6 feet apart. You can tell kids to put their mask on. You can do all these wonderful things, but once they start playing, they are going to forget. It's going to be hard, and because they are kids and they are having fun and they're seeing their friends that they have not seen in a very long time. So that will probably be one of the biggest challenges if there are rules having to be, harsh about those types of rules. We're not harsh, that having to be strict about those rules, because I understand where they're coming from. I saw some of my friends recently, and when you all watched it on video, when I had my announcement, and all rules went completely out my brain, and I just started hugging because I hadn't seen them in so long. Kids are going to do the exact same thing when they see their friends.
As far as the chronicler's office, I think that we're simply going to have to make sure, like I said earlier, that we get all the right information out. I would love to see a way to raise interest in the newsletter, and to see if we can get people to keep reading it, or to start reading it, or because it would be a very good place to make sure everything goes there and everything has the correct information in it. So
it's not official unless it's in the Chronicler.
That is right. It is not official if it's not in the newsletter.
yeah.
Absolutely. So I have a 3-parter, so this will take a second, and that's fine. Take your time. We'll ask them one at a time. What is the most difficult part of your job? Let's just do the one. We'll do them just the most difficult first.
I think that the most difficult was more of frustration than, and that was with getting people to understand the importance of deadlines, and getting people to understand the importance of submitting, because that submissions, from all of the officers, or from it trickles down. So if I can get all of the kingdom level officers to start putting their information in there, then other people will see it, and they will do it, or they'll look there for it. And so one of the worst parts, the frustrating parts, is knowing that you're putting so much work in and so few people are looking at it. That's pretty depressing.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with all of that, knowing that not many people see it, that's got to be one of the hardest parts for this new office for me. For the MOC office, difficult. When you are a traveling MOC, going to an event, showing up, and you have driven 4 or 6 hours, sometimes longer if it's in Tennessee for me, going to an event and then not having a space set aside for you. They knew you were coming. They thought they had a space, but something happened. completely get that, but it's become an afterthought. And you arrive and you're ready, and now we have to find space. Because you want certain requirements for the MOC office. You want to be near bathrooms because potty breaks are a thing. Not for you, but for the kids. You want to be near the adults because you want the adults to be able to look over and wave to their kids should they need to, because technically they still need to be in sight and sound. You want to be near the adults in case something happens and you need a herald to go find mommy and daddy. All these things. And or getting there and finding you are off in the middle of the woods, away from everything, away from the action, so that you're out of sight, out of mind. And I get a lot of times the thought process is you can be as loud as you want over here and it won't interrupt things. I completely understand that, but again, when you're so far away from the action, you can't get help if you need it. You have to hope and pray a herald comes walking by that you can snag and say, can you run over and yell for me? Because it's usually just you and your number 2, because an MOC always brings somebody with them, a number 2, so there are 2 adults watching the kids, but you can't send your number 2 off and then just be the only adult sitting there, because then that puts everybody in danger again.
I would think it would be frustrating to the parents too to have them so far out because they want to check on them easily, or even to make the children feel like they're a part of what's going on. If they're not there and can't see things and all of that, then they can't feel like they're a part of the SCA. This is just another babysitting thing, which is, I know that's the no word.
I wasn't going to say it, but I'm so glad you did. Yeah, that is, for me, that is one of the biggest frustrations, is when little things like that crop up. And I know they're not malicious. I know all of it is well-meaning. They're thinking, you're over here, you guys can be as loud as you want. There's a table, usually it's like a park bench area somewhere off in the woods, but then they from everything.
So just to swoop in and steal Ulrich's thunder, what's the most fun part of your...
So for Chronicler, for me so far, has been when somebody messages me about the pop shiv. When she let me do the Rick, because she was still the Chronicler at the time, and when I got to Rick roll everybody, and I put that one together, and I got so many people messaging me, yelling at me. That was wonderful. I loved that. For MOC, it is when the kids and the adults are playing with me. When I have a group of kids and a group of adults all joining in on the activity, that's the highlight for me, because then the kids are in the SCA. They're not just doing kids' activities.
It's a good one.
I would say that for me, there are 2 things. One is that I love to see all of the creativity, and I love to just kind of live through other people's ability to create things, because my skill set is very much not creative. But I think that what I have always liked, and it's kind of a nerdy thing, I know, and then but I like watching it come together and knowing that as an entity, it is pretty. It is cohesive. The fonts are the same, and the headlines are the same, and the pictures are cropped just right. And I like to see it come together as a finished, complete thing. So.
We're all a little geeky. That's perfectly fine to geek out on that. Totally down with that. Oh, absolutely. Jessica of Osprey's offered to put the PC up on the screen with the Rickroll on it. You got that. Toss that up there. But while she's getting that ready, we'll go ahead and ask the last part of this 3-parter, which is, what is the most rewarding part of doing each job?
For MOC,
You know?
it's when you see a kids class and you taught them the basics of a skill and you find out they're doing it at home. So if like you taught them a little bit of black work and you find out they're working on it at home, or finger weaving and you find out they're doing inkle weaving at home now, that is one of the most rewarding.
I think it's when for me, it's when I talk someone into putting their own stuff in, and they get good feedback, and then it's like all of a sudden, oh wow, I can do something, and it is pretty good. So I like that exposure bit.
All right, I think Jess has that Rickroll up for us. There's no world where I'm reading that. All right, good.
So yeah, they're in bold.
Mm-hmm.
So that one, a full commitment's what I'm thinking of. You wouldn't hear this from any other guy. I just want to tell you how I'm feeling. Gotta make you understand. Never gonna give you up. Never gonna let you down.
And now you've rickrolled the entire audience.
Yes.
Never gonna make you cry. Never gonna say goodbye.
Mm-hmm. And then we hid the last line way down at the bottom. There it is. It should be in the Embroidery Guild.
Yep. Never gonna tell a lie and hurt you. You are a vicious young woman. Well done.
Thank you.
So
yeah, I liked all the messages I got that day.
So moving forward, what advice would you give to someone interested in serving, either as Minister of Children or Chronicler?
Patience.
Know what you're getting yourself into, and be excited about it. I think that if you're excited about what you're going to do for any job or anybody, if you're excited about it, and especially if you can be excited about it without a lot of input, without a lot of yay, do it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree with all of that. Patience, lots of patience for MOC. Because they're babies. They're not all babies. They're 5 and up, but they're little, and little bodies have big emotions, and they're learning. And sometimes they don't want to learn. Sometimes they're just there. And you have to have patience with that. And then you have the rewarding moments when they are geeked out along with you and they want to learn, and it's wonderful. Also, having fun with them, that's great. So have a lot of patience, because it can be one of the most rewarding things ever.
All right. So we've kind of covered this already, but just to make sure that we haven't missed anything on it, are there any projects that you've implemented in your offices, or do you have any big plans going forward? Like, this is something that I want to accomplish during my term. Unfortunately, this is or so you have the past, anything that you managed to accomplish in it, and what you may accomplish going forward.
I think that for me, I tried to. I think one of the things I'd like to accomplish, or I would like to help accomplish at this point, would be to, and I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but to increase people's involvement in the newsletter, and that's one of the reasons why we had seasons and why we're going to have it again, because that's going to be a place where people can submit their own work, and hopefully that will get them involved. I teach English, and I can tell my students to write a paper, and they will do the minimum amount they have to. If I tell them to write a paper that's a personal story, I'll say 600 words and I'll get 1,300 because it's themselves and they're interested in it. So I think that's something that I would like to see more emphasis put on, is that involvement.
For Chronicler, it's basically the same. I want to increase interest in reading the Pop Shiv, and I'd like to get seasons up and running eventually. Once I've got a handle on doing the Pop Shiv when we're open, because that's going to be a completely different animal than what I'm dealing with right now. My goals when I was MOC, or Kingdom MOC, because I'm still a MOC, was to get Page School up and running, and to get background checks for deputies, and also to help diminish some of the babysitter mentality, and to help people understand it was more about education. Those were my 3 goals while I was in office.
How many of those did you accomplish?
I'd like to think all 3. Because we got Page School up and running, and we got the background checks for the deputies. And I believe that babysitter mentality has been diminished some.
Except for that one event in June.
One event in June.
There was that Black Axe in June.
Yes. There was that one event in June that somebody, and only because that one person asked for us to babysit, did we do it.
I still owe you more unicorns.
I can promise you.
Babysit Ulrich.
When you asked us, and I went to the MOCs and I said, this is what's happening, and they all immediately, we're not babysitters, and I was like, Ulrich's asking. Shoot. Fine.
And all you ask
demand
for
unicorns.
in return. You know how hard it is to find a unicorn on short notice? They're not easy.
You know how hard it was to go to the MOCs and demand that they be babysitters after I've been briefed or not.
Thank you. Thank you all.
So for the audience home, this is how things work here in Meridies. Every kingdom is different. Next, we're going to move on to some topics, myths, and misconceptions that permeate the SCA, but specific to these 2 offices. And the first one is for the chroniclers, i.e. both of you, is, hey, I'm Kingdom Seneschal, and I want to get my letter in for August. I wait until July, 31st or August 5th to get that in, right?
Oh, no. No. Okay, so one of the things that's really confusing about the chroniclers, we move a month ahead of time. So if you want something, if you're doing an event in July, okay, you can include that for 2 months ahead of time. So you would want to include it in the June issue and May. All right. Now the May issue technically comes out the 10th of April. So to get it in, you would have to have it in the 1st of April to get it in both times, which is what they are allowed to do. Group are allowed to have event ads for 2 months. So yes, you get very confused as to what day it is, and that last week when you're putting it together, because you're working so far ahead. But it will come out in April, even though it's called May. So people will be able to see it, and yeah, it is confusing. But no, you have to send it in the 1st of April for May.
So just to add on to that real quick, though, one thing that's important, we talked on it briefly earlier, and I'm going a little off script, I know, but if your event is not in the Kingdom newsletter, it's not official, things like court can't happen. And we've had problems with that before. So if you're planning an event, please make sure to work with the Kingdom Chronicler to get the ad in the appropriate Kingdom newsletters. And
keep in mind that we will do what we can to get it in. I have begged deadline extensions from Ariana the society level and have stayed there right to the very last minute. But if you don't get it to me so that or to Jane so that she can get it in within her deadlines, there's not really a lot that we can do.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, this is mainly an MOC question. All right, so let's pretend I live in Florida. All right, so I have all the paperwork together, and I have to go get it all notarized before I bring my child or bring my friend's child to an event in Alabama, right? How does the notarization bit work?
There are certain states that require the notarization. Florida is definitely one of them. I think Alabama might be the other one. But if you don't have it, unfortunately, the child cannot come in to the event. I was just talking about this today. In the MOC handbook, way in the back, there is a nice, handy dandy flow chart that explains all of it for people. And it has become something that a lot of troll users are now grabbing and framing and putting on the troll for when people come walking in, because it will tell you if you need to get things notarized or not. Catholic made it. The Honorable Lady Catholic made it, and it's wonderful.
It is.
Just to be clear, is that if the child is from Florida, no matter where they go, or
no, if you are going to an event,
if the event's in Florida?
Yeah, if the event is in Florida and the child is not yours, you have to have all this paperwork notarized.
And yeah, we ran into that a lot before the Kingdom law change about onboard and offboard prices. Probably the most to ask questions were, what can I charge for food or not charge for food at an event, and what has to be notarized and what doesn't have to be notarized on the children's paperwork. And as far as corporate's concerned, it's only if the child is going to an event in Florida.
Well, Florida's the big one. If you are coming to Florida, you have to get all these notarizations, and it just deals with a lot of state laws.
Right.
And we're Florida, and we're weird.
Nope, we're okay with that.
How often do MOCs help run events from outside their local group?
Often. So if it's a kingdom level event, the KMOC is required to make sure that MOC activities happen at that event. This can be a problem for a KMOC if that group that is hosting the kingdom level event does not have an MOC. Then they have to beg an MOC to go, and if nobody's taking the bait, then that Kingdom MOC will be the one traveling all over Kingdom going to events. I went to 9 events one year that I was MOCing. just me MOCing those events. We've now started implementing MOCs at large in a way. They're kind of just the traveling MOCs. That will be helpful. But if a group wants MOC activities at their event, they'll email the KMOC, and he or she will then go to the Facebook group, which was the easiest for me, and put it out there saying, hey, this group is hosting an event. They would like kids activities. Any takers? And if an MOC is nearby or is willing, then they get it. If we can't get one, then the KMOC will look at their schedule and decide, can I do this? And if they can't, then they have to say, unfortunately, at this time, we don't have an MOC available. But if your schedule's allowing it, then you go, because it's your responsibility.
All right. So how does writing for a newsletter differ from other types of writing?
We don't have a lot of or at least we didn't until this summer. Most everything we did was event ads and officers' reports. So you need to be really straightforward. You need to not put a lot of superfluous language in there. You need to recognize that the space is very compact, but you have to get your information out. So it's a lot more technical writing than traditional essay writing or short story writing or something like that. Now, when people do put their own things in that they have put together, like their research and things like that, then it can be we usually have more room for that. For example, when we start doing seasons, we won't have any limit as far as pages. We can do 4 pages or we could do 40 pages because it doesn't come out in print. So the restriction is due to coming out in print.
So this one's back to the MOC. Shamam Newell would like to know, do you wish more people would be allowed to get background checks to be able to volunteer or to be able to recruit more volunteers?
Ulrich, what were my feelings on background checks?
Yes, please. May I have more, please? Please, sir, may I have another?
May I have some more? Yes, I would love for more people to get background checks. The struggle with the background checks is the background check and there should be more of this. The person's background check needs to be with society. It's not just, hey, my job, I have a background check with my job because I'm a teacher. That one doesn't work because society doesn't have it. Society cannot prove that you are a safe adult. Society pays for these background checks. You do not have to. So that's why we cannot background check the entire kingdom the way I want. But yeah, right now, yes, you restrict me so much. The only people that can get the background checks currently are the MOCs and their one deputy. At least for the MOC office. I know for the youth fighters, of course, they are getting background checks, and seneschals, I believe, they have background checks too. That way there are more than one safe adult running around.
All right. Well, apparently we're on a Jane roll because.
Oh, but if you do want to volunteer, MOCs are always desperate for a number 2 at events. A number 2 is somebody that comes and just helps them, because we have to have an MOC and a number 2 to take care of the children so that you're not just the only one there. Sorry, I had to plug that for the girls.
That's fine.
Does the number 2 also have to have a background check?
They do not. The number 2 does not need to have a background check. Especially for the traveling MOCs, that would get really, really tricky for them to find a background check person willing to go to an event at a drop of a hat.
But if you have 3 people with a background check at the event, then one person can go to the bathroom.
I would love that.
All right, so
you don't know how hard it is when one little Timmy wants to use the bathroom, but you're the only background checked adult, so then you have to line up 20 kids and march them all the way over to the bathroom because you can't just send them off with somebody.
So some lady named Kathy, I don't know who she is, says, ask Jane about her/my favorite class that she taught. Please.
Okay, so Mr. Sturkatla gave me my big shot and asked me to be the MOC for 40th year. And I sent her a list of classes that I wanted to teach. And one of them, which has become her favorite, was painting like Michelangelo. And what I did was I put a drop cloth on the floor, and then I stuck that drop cloth underneath the table, and I took canvas and I hooked the canvas to the bottom of the table with pictures drawn on each little canvas strip, and the kids painted while lying on their backs, like Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. And we did a little class about the Sistine Chapel, and his commissions painted and how he didn't want to do it because he's a sculptor, he's not a painter, but he did it. And I know he didn't lie on his back while painting, that's from the movies, but still, this was cool. But they did that. They had their little canvas and they painted lying on their back.
That's awesome.
So now back to the Chronicle. How far do you have back issues of the Kingdom and Root newsletters? And this is for me and McConnell.
I don't know. I have 3 boxes of files. I have not had to access them, so I'm not sure. That would be interesting to look at and see what we have, at least as far as an archive or something.
I have a little bit of a follow-up question to that. You had mentioned earlier that there were some newsletters on programs or file formats that you can't open. Do you know anything about that? Is there would you like to give a shout out to people to see if anybody might have a way to open that?
No, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear. We have a PDF version of them because that's what has to go to that's what has to go to the society. So when I do the newsletter in public, I then save it as a PDF and the PDF goes to society. So in all of these, we have copies of them in PDF, but if we wanted to go in and reuse pictures, reuse graphics, anything like that, we have all of these files with some really wonderful things, but I don't know how to translate them.
Okay.
All right. So our last question from the live feed, which works out a pretty good time, comes from Mel Williams, and it's in reference to the changes in children's activities for the pandemic at an event. Would that mean having a parent have to stay at the activities at all times?
We don't know yet. We don't know what changes are going to be implemented at this time. We're still figuring that out and doing consultation with the Crown and with the Kingdom Seneschal. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
And I'm not in that
You don't
seat,
have to have
so
all the answers.
I'm not a part of those talks anymore.
Well, that's good. Makes good sense. All right. So that was the last of our live feed questions, which we're still running a little bit ahead of time, but that's perfectly fine. So is there anything that we haven't gone over tonight in regards to the Chronicler's office or the Minister of Children's office that you guys wanted to make sure we covered? Was there like this thing that you were like, all right, we got to make sure we cover this part tonight? And then Thomas and I just went off on our own direction and just left it behind?
I know I've mentioned several times, but I would just say this is the newsletter is a really great thing that kind of represents the whole kingdom. So support it, read it, contribute to it, make it a part of your SCA experience. The more people do that, the better it can get. And I think that we lost a lot when they went digital, when they went online and people didn't want to go look at them. But now you don't have to be a member. You can go and just look at them. Without that. So if you're not a paid member, you can still see them. And they are working. My understanding is the last time I was part of a discussion was that they are working to get it so that we can download it to the kingdom. We can download ours to the kingdom so people won't even need to go to the SCA page to look at them. So
that would be nice.
Yeah.
So right quick on that, I just wanted to add in, because one of the complaints that I heard a lot was that you couldn't, we don't get the paper pop shiv anymore. When you renew your membership, you can pay a small fee and they will mail it to you at the end of every month. Now, the PDF version will come out about mid-month and you won't get this till the end of the month, but you'll still have access to both of them. So if you want a paper version of the Popular Chivalry, you can still get it. It's still available to you if you're willing to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So
You got anything, Jane?
For the MOC office, no, I think we covered a lot of what I was hoping to be able to talk about.
You can cover for the Chronicler's office too. If there was something we haven't covered there.
She covered the Chronicler, and that please go read it. It is not official. Whatever you read on Facebook is not technically official unless it's in the pop shiv.
Yep. And on that subject, there are plenty of back issues going back. I want to say at least 6 years, if not more, that are available online. So, all right, Thomas, my bad. Sorry, I got mouthy. I've had a lot of
run
lime
over
juice.
you a couple of times tonight. So do any of you have any shout outs that you'd like to make tonight? Other shows to watch, people doing good things in the kingdom you'd like to point out?
Oh, I could point out Lady Jane because she has done a great job taking over this office. It was unexpected, when I took it over, and I was really happy to find somebody who was not only willing to do it, but interested in doing it, because it makes a difference.
Definitely want to shout out to Lady Deedre Turner, the new KMOC. She's doing a wonderful job in a difficult situation with us being in the pandemic, and that's how she started her office. So that's not easy. And definitely want to shout out all the MOCs out there for doing what they do, because it is definitely an act of love.
Ulrich?
So absolutely all the MOCs, and both of you have done wonderful jobs. Dianora, you saved me several times as Kingdom Seneschal for holding I'll hold the letter just a little bit longer, but if you don't get it to me by tomorrow, I'm going to have to send this in. And it saved me a bunch of times, and thank you all for your patience. For shows, I want to throw some love out to the Sisters interview and Grace Under Pressure from the Sisters Network. They do some fantastic work. As always, we'd like to thank Between Two Peers for their support of the show and letting us use the game that we usually play that we clearly did not play in any way, shape, or form tonight. But just thanks to everyone. Thanks mostly to the audience for being here for us. Otherwise, we're just a bunch of weirdos talking in weird clothes.
So, since my note says we all answer these, I want to say thank you to our crown, the Meridian Crown. I think they've done an amazing job in I know we say unimaginable situation a lot, but in this case, it absolutely was unimaginable, and they have taken a reasoned and logical approach to all the chaos that has happened, and I really appreciate it. I also want to reach out and thank everybody who's put together virtual ways for us to continue the SCA, and that includes Ulrich and Erik and the people behind Two Peers and Ask the Knights and Grace Under Fire and all the other shows out there, and the people who put together virtual events, the social media group, and, Jessica, who's behind the scenes here, Katarina, who's behind the scenes here, Ellen. I mean, I don't even know everybody who's involved in all these, but the people who've kept the SCA really functioning in this really difficult time.
And before I get to the actual thank you portion of the show, I'm actually going to go back into the shout outs and throw in not only the board of directors who have done a bunch of stuff to get us back going, the admin side of things. Renee and Teresa don't get enough love for all the work that they do. Liz and John in the Seneschal and President are always doing. Look, guys, I didn't know how much the email they got in one day. It is ridiculous. The feedback they get sometimes, and they read. If you ever think my voice isn't heard, let me promise you that every email sent to the corporate office is read. Every single one of them, no matter how well reasoned or how wacky they may be, they are all read. All right. So,
just to add on to that, Bart posted a picture of what he had to read for the last board meeting. It was literally a 2-foot high stack of paper.
Yep.
Just for one meeting.
Yep. Absolutely. All right. So, thanks to our guests, Maestra Dianora, the Honorable Lady Jane and Lady Deidre, who was not here but was with us in spirit, and we appreciate her, and we will get her back on at some point in the future. Of course, thanks to our tech crew, Jessica, Adriana, Katerina, Kikuchi, Margaret, but most of all, thank you, our audience, for tuning in every week, hopefully every week, please every week, to keep us going and keep us moving through this weird pandemic timeline.
Next week, we'll review the offices of Parchment Pursuit with Maestra Veronica De Luca and the Kingdom historian, Lord Rorik. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Rorik. And for those of you who don't know, Parchment Pursuit is in charge of scrolls for the Kingdom. Please join us Saturdays for the Hound and Stag Fighting Review, where we'll cover Meridian Fallen Crown List 2018.
All right, so if you've enjoyed yourself tonight, or if you haven't, but still want to support the show, please take a moment to like and subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, that's going to be down here. So press like, press subscribe, ring the little bell, get your notifications. And if you're watching on Facebook, like and follow up here. And maybe we'll get a little more exposure on Facebook and YouTube. That'd be nice. Analytics, they're a thing.
Finally, if you're watching live, give us about 5 minutes for a break, and then feel free to join us on Zoom for the after show. Watch the live feed, comment on Facebook for the link. We'll hang out and chat for about half an hour after the show. Graf and Katerina will post it now.
Wait. We have merch. I don't know. This timeline is weird, but we have merch. Go to hound-and-stag.com and buy our merch, or don't. Do what you want. You're mostly responsible adults. Maybe. All right. Night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
And if I die in battle, tomorrow I'll be home, though it's 70 days march to there from Rome. But a soul travels swiftly on the night wind, and if I die in battle, I'll be home again.